For many Pasadena Tournament of Roses parade enthusiasts who live in Torrance, each New Year's Day morning means waiting patiently for Torrance's float entry to come down the parade route in its full glory.
All right, here's the winner of the Lathrop K. Leishman Most Beautiful Entry from a non-commercial sponsor. This is the city of Torrance, California.
Torrance participation is a proud tradition that some may take for granted. But behind the floral perfection and effortless smiles are thousands of hours of behind-the-scenes preparation and hard work.
To see the float going down the parade route, you can say, oh, I did that part of it, and you're part of history.
Mary Hoffman has managed the year-long float development process and all-volunteer decorating effort for 14 years. She says it's the personal connections that bring her back each year.
We get to meet a lot of people that come back year after year, and you make friends with them, and it's just a great deal of satisfaction to see the float from when it was the original concept back in March to going down the parade route. And usually when we have judging, I cry because it is a great relief to have it done. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of satisfaction to see the final product.
Torrance's Rose Parade history dates back to 1914. A Pasadena group known as the Valley Hunt Club organized the first parades and later founded the Pasadena Tournament of Roses. Pasadena resident and Torrance founder Jared Sidney Torrance was a member of the Hunt Club and saw the parade as a plum marketing opportunity for his newly found city.
It was kind of to say to the people back east, hey, you're freezing in the snow and we got oranges on trees. We've got people riding in this parade in white dresses. We have men just with a lightweight jacket on. Come on out. It's probably the best advertising for your dollar per minute around the world. And it was that way at that time too.
The Torrance Historical Society and Museum now preserves several pieces of that first year's history. A black and white postcard featuring a photograph of Torrance first float, and an original January 1st, 1914 Torrance Herald detailing the Torrance float. Both have been enlarged for display.
We were screaming and jumping up and down when we found the newspaper because it really went on to say kind of why we put something in the parade, you know, and it went on to tell us what color the flowers were that we couldn't tell from a black and white postcard. But for a long time I'd heard that there was a trophy, and I just felt like a Sherlock Holmes. I said, I'm going to try to track it down. So I just charged down to City Hall, not even knowing where I was going or who I was going to talk to.
The trophy took quite a journey before ending up shined up and in its current home, the museum's display case.
The story that we have now is that Ed Ferraro, who was the city manager, found it in like an antique/junk shop for just a few dollars and took notice of it because it said Torrance on it. And of course he worked for Torrance, and so he bought it.
According to Payne, the late Ferraro and his wife kept the trophy and used it to decorate their home. He eventually decided to give it to the city, where it ended up in storage and eventually on the desk of Gary Schmidt, Parks and Recreation liaison with the Torrance Rose Float Association. This is where Payne found it.
I said, Gary, I need that trophy. And he says, well, I can keep my rubber bands in it, Janet. And I said, it's really important.
The first float, decorated in red and white roses, reveals a lot about early Torrance. Years later, oil would become a major industry in Torrance, but it wasn't discovered until 1921. The oil derrick displayed atop the first float represented big industry in Torrance, such as Union Tool, a maker of oil well service equipment, and Llewellyn Iron Works, all in an attempt to attract new residents to a thriving industrial town. The reasons are unclear, but Torrance did not enter the parade again until 1947, and then again until 1958, when it entered this float called Rocket to the Moon, highlighting the city's recently acquired All-America City status. A hallway here in the West Annex of City Hall serves as a hall of fame of sorts for Torrance Rose Float history. It's here where you can get a sense of the unique flavor Torrance has contributed to the parade each year.
These are the trophies. Originally, they gave out trophies, the loving cups, silver, bronze, brass, whatever, loving cups, but then they started giving out the framed portrait of your float. So the bigger the frame, the bigger the prize.
Georgine Griswold served as director of volunteers and also president of the Rose Float Association in the 1980s. She began decorating the floats in 1971.
You can see here's a two-section float. Well, in the early days, it was just one small float because the parade itself started out with horse carriages being decorated with roses. That was the parade, and that it involved to a self-maintained vehicle or whatever. And all these floats have a automobile chassis underneath them. They started out very simple. I know when I first started decorating, the whole base of the float was evergreen boughs. So the day after the Christmas tree lots in town closed down, we'd go and whack off all the branches of the Christmas trees to cover the base of the float. And tournament does not allow that now. I mean, that was a quick and easy way to cover a big space, and now everything is more intricate and detailed.
And every detail counts. With millions of people viewing the finished product around the world, nothing escapes close scrutiny. That was clearly evident to 31-year volunteer Barbara Hill, who worked on the Bully for the British float back in 1987.
We had one year a float that was a British bulldog, and he would carry a British flag in his mouth. And the British flag, of course, was very complicated. A lot of carnation petals and rice and blue status. It was very finely chopped. We worked real hard on that. No one realized, though, that when we put it all together and sent it on its way down Colorado Boulevard, that we had put the British flag on upside down. And we did get a lot of calls on that.
In spite of the flaw, the crowd-pleasing Bulldog still took home Governor's Trophy honors. According to Griswold, it represented a turnaround for the city's parade presence, and the tournament took notice.
They were going in the direction of the big floats from other countries and the big corporate floats. And here was Torrance and their little 35-foot float every year. They were not very enamored with us for a while. So I took it upon myself to do something different and something that they noticed. I had the Queen in her court come to an afternoon English tea. I tried to tie the whole British thing together, and the tournament, I again turned a bright eye toward us, and from then on, ta-da, trophies.
Raul Rodriguez Fiesta floats again.
Another key factor in Torrance's recent trophy sweep is the addition of noted float designer Raul Rodriguez of Fiesta Parade Floats to the float development team.
I am really honored and always proud to design and work with all the fabulous people of Torrance.
Torrance is known for their people who like to decorate and do detail work. And so our float designer, Raul Rodriguez, always comes up with things that require a lot of details because he knows that our people can do that and enjoy doing it.
This is probably a whole day's worth of work for probably about 10 people.
It's estimated that each float requires more than 4,000 hours of volunteer work to carefully apply each flower petal, grain of rice, or layer of status with glue. The dry cutting work begins in November. The day after Christmas, community volunteers begin working round the clock to finish the job with fresh flowers, leaves, and other plant-derived elements.
How many newbies are there? Oh, wow. Welcome, welcome. Thank you very much.
The intent of the all-volunteer program through the City Parks and Recreation Department was to involve the community. Boy Scout troops, Girl Scout troops, youth groups from churches. So it became a way that they could give back to the city in no other way, because there is very limited means for people to give back to the city when you're a youth.
a way to give back and also pay it forward for 58 years, putting and keeping Torrance on the world map.
We sell a t-shirt every year that has the float on it, and people will wear them to other parts of the country or even the world, and they will say that people tell them about having seen the float in the parade.
While the city of Torrance foots the bill for 80% of the float's cost, fundraising efforts of the Torrance Rose Float Association cover the remainder. This includes expenses such as feeding and providing bus service for volunteers. A fee to ride on the parade float also helps to cover costs, an honor Hill experienced on the float titled Love is Magical, a Romeo and Juliet themed float in 2006.
I rode on that one, and that was the year of the rain. And it poured, but we had so much fun. It was great on there. But I had this heavy velvet dress on, all the little Renaissance looking. And the sleeves and the skirt were soaking up the water, and I didn't realize it until we were partway down the parade route, and I looked down, I noticed the neckline of my dress is starting to get lower and lower and lower. And finally, at one point when we stopped, I just started wringing out the sleeves, trying to get as much water out as I could. But did make it to the end of the route, still decent. But that one was a little bit of a nerve-wracking one.
But despite a few nerve-wracking moments, for volunteers like Hill, when the last pedal is glued, nothing else beats that sense of a job well done.
When it finally makes it across and everything is working, nothing caught fire, nothing's falling off, which is always good. And you see that your work, yes, the whole thing came together. All the people that you had working on it, all the residents, and even some people from out of state will come. And they come every year just for this honor to work on the float. And it feels so wonderful to see, yes, there we go, City of Torrance going down the parade route, and it looks so gorgeous.
Colleen Farrell with this Centennial Oral History.